Welcome to the Prog Talks by the Progspace. Welcome to the Prog Talks, an interview series by the Progspace where we will be talking to musicians in all corners of the progressive music scene.
Welcome back to another episode of the Prog Talks. I'm your host Dario, and as always, before we jump into today's topic and welcome today's guests, I want to remind you of this cup of tea, cup of coffee you can get for us. Helps us out a lot to keep doing what we're doing with the Prog Talks. And now, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
It is
support shows that are having good music on.
It is an absolute pleasure and honor to talk to you today. For our listeners calling from New Orleans and Denver, Colorado, respectively, Chris Bogen and Tim Smolens from the new project High Castle Teleorkestra. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having us, Dario.
It's not the first debut album we're talking about here for the Prog Talks this year. There seems to be something in the air. Maybe it was the time when people were at home the last 2 years that they thought, let's reach out to other awesome players and do a new project. High Castle Teleorkestra is about to drop their debut album, The Egg That Never Opened, Radio Free Albemuth, Part 1.
Parentheses there.
Lots of words.
On June 16th on the amazing Art As Catharsis label from Australia. And I think the two of you, you're the core members, and there's a lot of other people playing on the album. So maybe you can tell us a little bit how the project started, how it about the initial spark that led to the creation of the High Castle Teleorkestra.
Chris, go for this one.
Yeah. This is it's a pretty fun story from my perspective because Tim and I actually started working together because he wanted to realize a fully fleshed out version of this lost legendary Steely Dan song called The Second Arrangement. It was supposed to be on their Gaucho album, and it got erased. And that's a whole other story, but I had sent Tim a message at some point after the last I.S.S CD came out. And, I said, hey, I love this album. I'm a big Beach Boys fan. I follow, Estradasphere and Secret Chiefs 3, and I'm a dad like you. And I don't know what it was I said that caught his attention. But I also gave him a guitar video of me on YouTube playing some sort of finger picking guitar stuff. And he said, oh, I really like this. Let's do something sometime. And, people say that to be nice. So I was just like, okay, whatever. Tim Smolens said this thing. And about 7 months later, he asked me about this Steely Dan thing. And we worked for months on that one song obsessively, like ridiculous.
That's crazy
amount. Yeah. I think we put as much work in that one song, almost half.
Yes.
We probably could have done half of the album. But after we finished the song, we enjoyed it so much, like Tim had these other songs ideas, and we started working on those. And we were already working remotely. This was all before the pandemic. Not too far ahead of the pandemic. But
it started, though, in the middle of it, yeah.
We had this workflow because I'm in New Orleans, he's in Colorado. We had never met in person, and we were already establishing a workflow. And so we started working on Claw Peels, which is on the album, and The Days of Blue Jeans Were Gone first. And we sort of used those as working demos, and Tim was reaching out to his other connections, Timba and Dave and Stian and Bear about, hey, do you want to be in this thing? And so it grew from there. It seems like a pandemic concept, even the name of the band, but it sort of just happened by accident like that, really.
What he's trying to say, Dario, is that before all this, he was just a fanboy.
Yeah.
Then I answered his email and I'm like, dude, let's do some stuff together. And we did that one song. So it worked out. And then we started doing those new songs and we were kind of tinkering with the idea that like, this should be a band or whatever. And we're kind of selling it like this is from the pandemic because we can't go out. We'll do this band. But the truth is, I'm just going to say it up front. Like we would be probably working like this regardless of what's happening in the world. So I hope that sort of answers your question a little bit there.
Yeah, it does. And the two songs you just mentioned, Chris, the Days of Blue Jeans Were Gone and Claw Peels. If I remember correctly, I had the pleasure of listening to it a couple of times already, and I think those are two of the more let's say the less metal songs. Could that be?
Yeah, they're the metal. Like metal is almost like a paintbrush, I guess, in a lot of the album. But those two songs, especially, that's right. Like metal. I think there's those two, and maybe Diagnosing Johnny and Placentia that really don't have any metal at all. If by metal you mean like like distorted like chugs and
Yeah, that's kind of the middle part or the middle to late part of the album. It starts with the title track and I have to say this first riff that kicks in with double bass and everything, and it is a theme. I can't quite pinpoint it. It's something. It reminds me of, I don't know, Edward Grieg.
You want me to help you, or do you want me to leave it a mystery? Oh, you're close. You're close. It is something. So I don't know if you want to get into it now, but this entire song is based on a book, Radio Free Albemuth by Philip K. Dick. And in the first chapter, the narrator works at a record store in Berkeley, California in the 1950s, I think. And he's talking about all these records that people are buying. So we decided, let's make a song that kind of is a real abstract version of all those. So I'll dispel the mystery. It's the Firebird Suite by Stravinsky was one of the main points of the record of that he was talking about in chapter 1. Stravinsky was one of the main points, and the other one was a German liberal war march that they would do in the 40s or something when they were in Spain or World War I. So there's about maybe 15 or 20 different Easter egg songs that we put in there that are from that chapter. So if you read that chapter, you could figure out every song that's in that first song, but it would take a lot of work.
I think you definitely should do a giveaway or something. Whoever guesses all 15.
You're reading my mind. I had already thought that the person who gets it will get like, I don't know, a couple different vinyls or a CD and a vinyl and a shirt. I had thought about a giveaway for that already, so you're on it, man. we can also promote it through the Progspace, of course. Let's do it. Let's do it. We're down.
Sounds like a plan, man.
Like 90% of the songs in there would be easy to get, but there would be a couple where in the chapter they only mention the artist and not the song. So you would have to look through that artist's catalog to figure out the song. So I think it's a good challenge.
Yeah.
Calling the music nerds.
Yes, there'll be 3 people that submit.
It's got to be the greatest medley and whatever genre music we're in.
Yeah, it is the only the title track based on that book or on that story, or the whole album? So
there's 30 chapters on the book, and we decided to make it 3 records. So you notice how it's 10 songs? So it's linear. Each song is 1 chapter.
Now that's probably the most straightforward adaptation, at least as far as the concept goes. of any
true.
concept album.
Nothing to figure out about the order. Yeah, there's no mystery there.
Looking at where is it? Looking at this one here.
Oh, right.
that has all these different chapters that are like all over the place. Whatever, but the thing about High Castle Teleorkestra, of course, is we already established that the first song is a crazy medley with all sorts of music you would think that doesn't go together, and of course it's the whole album that the music is all over the place. And I gotta say, it's so much fun, and I really I can't stop listening. I'm wondering where you guys got the inspiration from musically.
Let me say first, and then I'm going to let Chris go. Like, that song for me is the most fun. And as we were doing this record, we were putting that song off till later. And I kept telling Chris, like, how are we going to do this? I don't want to do a medley that's just like dun, 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 and like funny. Usually medleys are a novelty. I didn't want it to be a novelty. I wanted it to be something you could listen to and have fun, but it's all not just fun in a sort of like a gimmicky way. Like, it's a fun listen, because a lot of the listen on this record is pretty serious and heavy, where to start it off with this fun circusy sort of vibe, we were putting it off, and I eventually, I think I did most of it myself, where I finally figured out, and Chris and I are always collaborating on the arrangement, but I think I sort of took the lead on that one. And we finally just figured out a way to sort of layer different things on top of each other and sort of make it work. What were your recollections, Chris, on that?
Yeah, I mean, for the medley, for sure. I guess if you mean by the whole album, like, where we get the inspiration or idea, it's, man, that's a really tough one to get into.
Yeah, to put these different genres together that usually you wouldn't think of trying to blend.
Yeah, I think I think for sure, we already had, there's already a tradition of that from where Tim comes from in his Estradasphere catalog, and the collaborations that the time he spent working on the road with Secret Chiefs 3 and some in the studio. Like, there's definitely a tradition of that sort of thing just amongst all the band members, Timba and Dave and Bear. I think Tim and I both, though, like at a pretty young age, back in 1995, like we both separately in other parts of the country, got Mr. Bungle's Disco Volante album. And that was a big moment for each of us individually. And huge. I think that even back then sort of clicked. Like, I had a lot of interests in my grandfather's record collection. He had a lot of easy listening stuff and stuff that maybe considered exotica, or, I like that stuff, but I almost felt like not cool, or, I was just like, oh man. But then not I heard cool that, I was like, holy shit, like there's other people like this. And, because we grew up the time we were, I'm in my 40s, and metal was the thing, like, you learn how to play guitar, you want to learn how to play some Metallica songs or some Megadeth or whatever, and you then branch off into other music. So I think hearing Mr. Bungle was a big inspiration for, setting the tone of, hey, let's combine these things that we like. I can't really hide that. What would you say, Tim?
I mean, there's something about that record, Disco Volante particularly, where if you were to take all of progressive music and put it in this circle, this album, like, literally does not belong in this circle. There's something different about it. And it has to do with the recording and the aesthetic. And instead of it being so about being technical, really fast music, it's like pointing to these weird Italian film soundtracks and German film soundtracks and stuff that doesn't even sound like it's from this planet. So that's a little bit more of the direction we're in as far as progressive music, where you can't quite fit us into the normal, Zappa, King Crimson, Dream Theater, all of those kind of things. It's a different branch that cares more about the sounds of the recording than it does about how fast we're playing, basically.
Though we definitely have, maybe not Tim as much, but some of us are into some of the traditional prog. Like, I'm not a huge deep into it, but I like Zappa, and I'm a big King.
I still don't think it filters into the band that much.
But yeah, I don't think that's more stuff like I listen to, and I'm like, holy shit, that's really cool. I can't do anything like that. But I like these other things, and I guess that's a whole other conversation about what is progressive music or what is progressive rock.
I think we have to be a little bit cautious about talking into each other, because I think Chris, when your mic is open and we talk into it, we get a feedback, so we won't understand what the other person is saying. So maybe try
mute it, maybe. Okay.
Or just have a tiny second between people talking. Let's try it. I know it's not easy, but where were we? We were talking about progressive music. What is progressive music?
We're just getting off on a big tangent, as we usually do. So redirect us back to the road, sir.
Back to the road. With the Estradasphere, there was one thing that I remember when listening to Palace of Mirrors, like 20 years ago or something, or 15 years ago, I don't know. There was this folk influence that was like entirely different than like I think mostly when folk music is integrated into heavier rock music, you like the most stuff you get out of this is like totally bland power metal chords infused with like some Finnish humpa or whatever, which is like, for me, it's I'm sorry, but it's really boring. And also like there's this like a German movement of folk metal with like bands like In Extremo or Subway to Sally that I don't relate at all to, and there always was this like folk music, more maybe also from the Balkan and not the traditional Nordic German or Swedish or Finnish folk music stuff that you would usually hear in the folk metal, whatever. So it was more like a world music influences as well, I think, and also the use of a lot of like string instruments like a violin, viola, and cello. It's often like, okay, these they play a little melody, or you'll have some synths or an orchestra doing some symphonic stuff. But Estradasphere was just totally different and taking these influences very differently, or also taking different influences in the first place, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll answer that one because that was in my turf. Honestly, on Palace of Mirrors, there's not that much folk music. The only real folk music is the Smuggled Mutation, which is a Romanian medley of gypsy songs. The other songs that I think you're referring to would be like Corporate Merger and The Return, which have these Bulgarian style, melodies over some metal at times, but there's nothing like traditional. It doesn't like it's inspired by, but it's not based on a traditional. But I still think that vibe comes across, right? Because we have that Romanian tune, and most of the rest of the record seems to be pointing more towards a lot of like Italian and German film music, actually. But that influence that you're talking about is definitely there. And I think the difference for Estradasphere, and I think High Castle is in the same boat, is Metal is a very strange thing to me, because most bands, right, like, are metal or they're not. Like, and that's it. There's so few bands you could tell me that are like, they do a little bit of metal. Like, Estradasphere was not a metal band. We played metal. High Castle is 100% not a metal band. That's why we get a metal drummer. So that when you need to do metal, you can do it. But because if you didn't have a drummer, right, you can't do metal. So Dave is perfect for that, because Dave is a student of metal, and you need somebody who does that. So for High Castle, and the same with Estradasphere, is metal is a dynamic that we can add to a song, but we're not a metal band. We just, the song might, if it's going to get loud, like if it was a classical piece, the cellos would be going really loud, and the contrabasses and the timpanis. So for us, it's not our aesthetic. We don't live and die by metal, but metal is a big part of our sound at times, and we use it for a certain, I would say, a dynamic effect.
Yeah. I just joined a choir again here in Munich, and we're rehearsing the German Requiem by Brahms. And this is pure doom metal for me.
Seriously, I would honestly rather hear that doom metal than a lot of other stuff, because the composition is so good. That's you know what I mean. Nobody writes like that anymore. Like who writes like that? That's good stuff, man.
High Castle Teleorkestra, maybe?
No, I would not put us in that boat at all. Those classical composers are in a realm all of their own. They didn't have a cell phone or an Xbox or the TV. They could just write on a piece of paper, and I cannot do that.
Out of their minds.
I sit here for hours and hours and hours to make the things that you're hearing. These guys I'm sure they did too, but they also could just do it.
Yeah, actually, just right before, like 1 or 2 weeks before I got the egg that never opened. I always want to say the egg that never hatched, because I like that word very much.
and it's more associated with an egg. So yeah, we just went with the book. The book said that. So you're correct.
Well, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe even before I got the promo. And to listen to it for the first time, I got another promo of an album that just released 2 days ago, as we're recording this, from a French band called Gerald, and it's their debut album, The Lost Tapes, and I was totally floored by it. It's also very. We also had a Prog Talks episode with the drummer Teddy, and the thing about them is that they're not really a prog band, but still they're very proggy. They have these also avant-garde kind of influences, very, very, very much King Crimson influences, but also the punk aesthetics from the King Crimson punk vibe side that is very rare in prog. And they also have their metal moments without being a metal band at all.
Nice. To check that out, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then the egg that never opened came along and kind of bumped that album from the throne as my album of the year, like almost immediately. But it's very close. And I'm gonna see Gerald live in 2 days here in Munich, and so is there any thoughts about bringing the High Castle Teleorkestra on stage at this point?
Yeah, that would it would be a big wish list item, but I don't think that it's going to be it's not really feasible, just because we're all, we have Bear in Australia and Timba in France and Stian in Norway, and then Tim, Dave, and I scattered around the U.S. Just for us to be in the same room together would be thousands of dollars probably. And then, like, Tim and I are not full-time. We're not in the same ballpark as Stian or Timba are, like, full-time musicians. Like, we have full-time jobs, and we have a family at home, and I even have a part-time job and doing this. So it would be tough. If something crazy happened and this thing blew up, like, somehow,
Well, the Kickstarter campaign was quite successful for a start, for a kickstart, right?
For sure, yeah. That was a good. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Oh yeah, I mean, so you look at it and say, oh, they made almost $30,000, right? If I were to show you a list of where that money is going, it's almost entirely to like manufacturing the vinyl, manufacturing the CDs, manufacturing the shirt. We still don't know if there's anything left over for the band members yet at all. So it was amazingly successful, but it's obviously, to make money in music, you need to do incredibly well. So, I mean, the thing about, this band is it would obviously take us, this album sort of taking off and there becoming this sort of demand for us to even think about that. We don't even know how to play our songs at this point. You hear how many layers there are in those recordings. We could do it if we had to, but it would be we're going to focus on establishing our name, establishing the fact that like we make, great sounding, unique records with a certain aesthetic. And then I think whatever happens after that, we kind of go from there, but it's not looking very likely at this point.
So you're going to focus on completing the trilogy, right?
Honestly, just getting this one out has almost killed us. So yes, we are, but I don't even want to think about that next one yet at this point.
No, we have to think about a vacation, a holiday. Yeah, it is funny you mentioned that we don't know how to play the songs. Like it's taken us 2 years to make this album, and I know for me, like I'll have a laundry list of parts to do for these songs, and I'll sit there obsessively for a week, sometimes 2 weeks, just to get the part for the one song. And then after that, like I will almost never play it again. So like we're trying to make music videos and things, and like for one of these songs, and I'm like, oh shit, like I've got to go back and learn what I played, like, because I don't remember how to play whatever I played there. But
all right, yeah, you guys already mentioned that there's more people on the album. Maybe you can introduce them quickly, so people know what to expect. Which are the sounds apart from the bass by Tim and the guitars by Chris?
That's right. It's a real all-star lineup, honestly. We have Bear McKinnon from Australia, who played in Mr. Bungle, and he didn't have a huge voice in Mr. Bungle. A lot of times his little parts the way they wrote music, from what I understand, is they would have these little tapes going around, and anyone could take any little part and turn it into their part. So a lot of the parts you'd be surprised to learn, like, oh, Bear wrote that. There's a lot of parts in the bends on Disco Volante, or certain parts of like Air Conditioned Nightmare. But he wasn't, you have Trevor, Trey, and Mike, which are these three really big personality composers. So he kind of got a little bit lost in there, but he was a huge part of their sound. And his compositions have this weird way of sounding very Bungle-ish, like in general. Like you couldn't tell if it's like, I could tell you Trey's style of composition because we've heard Secret Chiefs 3 and we've heard a lot of Trevor's solo stuff and Mike's stuff in different bands. So you start to be able to break down, their different styles. And Bear, all I can say is he's got this unbelievably unique style of quirky compositions that just fits in that world without being like pretentious or contrived in any way. So we got Bear McKinnon, who plays multi-instrumentalist, tenor sax. He sings, if we don't have a lot of vocals, but he sometimes does, clarinet and flute. And keyboards, obviously. Then we've got Timba Harris, who was with me in Estradasphere, incredible violin player. And since we stopped working together, he has taken that skill of like arranging for string sections, like all on his own. And he has hit this level that he never was at all in Estradasphere, that I'm almost jealous. I'm like, man, if you could have done that back then. He's really amazing at writing strings sections that are very abstract. The parts are not linear. It's like this one comes in here. They all sort of stagger in to make that really, amazing sort of string writing thing happen. So he's our pretty much our string guy. We've got Dave Murray, who was with me in Estradasphere, the original drummer, who's a real metal guy, but he can play like jazz and prog too. And he really is responsible for some of those really weird polyrhythms. He loves Meshuggah and all that stuff. So he's kind of our metal guy. Like he keeps us hip and relevant in the metal. Because if it was just Chris and I, man, we would be so not cool in that realm at all. Because we're listening to like 50s easy listening records here in our little basement. And then we've got Stian Karstensen from Farmers Market from Norway, who's one of the greatest musicians I've ever heard. He plays accordion. He plays all kinds of things, mostly accordion on our record. He also plays the pedal steel guitar, and he can play flute. We didn't even get into all the stuff he plays. I think he played one rhythm guitar thing on the Romanian tune because it had this weird Romanian rhythm that we didn't even know how to do. But he is kind of the highlight. He's kind of the spotlight sort of feature instrumentalist on the record because he takes these solos that just rip the roof off the place. And you never imagined that this was even possible on an accordion. Like he's just that good. So it's a stacked lineup. We've got a lot of special guest drummers. Before we had Dave involved, there's some drummers, there's a Bulgarian violinist, there's a cymbalum player who lives in Amsterdam. There's a bunch of guests that really fill out the record. Speaking about accordion, another debut album coming out from France is Kraft, Epic Discordant Vision. We also had a Prog Talks episode with them. When this drops, it's going to be out already. And they play Gregorian jazz metal with enhanced accordion and saxophone, which is absolutely killer. So this is great times for crazy music and not only the traditional prog. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us here at the Prog Talks. All the best with the act that never opened. I'm so looking forward to seeing and hearing all the people's reaction to the album. You people out there listening, you really should go follow High Castle Teleorkestra on their socials everywhere. We're gonna link the links everywhere in the description, as you know, and go listen to the egg that never opened. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for us, our stuff, Prog Talks and the Progspace. And don't forget to get us a cup of tea, cup of coffee, helps us out a lot. The Egg That Never Opened, Radio Free Albemuth Part 1 is out on June 16th on Art As Catharsis. It's a mind-blowing album, I tell you. Until next time, we are almost at the end of this first season, 2022. Before our little summer break, we have one more very interesting episode prepared for you. So keep your eyes peeled, and until next time, take care of yourselves and keep spreading that love for crazy music.
The Prog Talks, produced by the Progspace. Main host, Rune Belsvik-Reinås. Produced by Rune Belsvik-Reinås, Vanessa and Matthias Kirsch. All graphics and animations by Vanessa Kirsch. Intro theme by Giuseppe Negri. Outro theme by Zach Munowitz. This was the Prog Talks by the Progspace. See you in a week.